Just so y'all know, what we'll do is we have this little like lapel mic that I'm holding that we can pass around to people to make sure you can hear them as they're talking in the room. So hopefully that should help. It's not really that good. It is. And you know what's crazy? We tried so hard to make it simple. And when we tried, that was not working for an outside. Not too bad. I'm gonna you guys do that. Actually, There you go. You can use it to check out. Yes, you can have a beautiful number. Yes, you can just text me after that. We're not right down the road. Right down the road. I'm driving right down the hall. Yes. I can be here in a few minutes. Okay, I know. I've been. Hey, this is Hannah. Do y'all know how many in-person people you're supposed to have here?
I think the last time I checked and with responses to an email I sent out, it was about 13 or 15.
Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 8 in here right now, so we can give it just like another minute or two.
Yeah, we were
and
gonna give it
see,
a
and then
few
Fran will
minutes.
hand it over to you.
Perfect.
Hey y'all, this is Fran. It is 3:30, so it's up to y'all when y'all want to start.
We can wait does it seem like on that end that people are still coming in and out, or think everybody's ready?
It looks like it's pretty stable. It's been 8 for a few minutes now.
Okay, gotcha. And then for online, I don't know if more people are gonna join or if I'm just like not seeing people, but yes, we can go ahead and get started. So thank y'all for coming. Before we actually jump into the workshop, I do want to start by reading our water and land acknowledgement from down here in South Florida. So we want to begin by acknowledging that the land on which our university stands was once occupied by the Seminole tribe. It's important for us to acknowledge this First Nation, as our work in inclusive and culturally sensitive pedagogies invites us to remember that Indigenous rights are human rights. And as we explore the assumptions of our teaching and administrative practices today, we want everyone to join us in remembering the violence and the pain that is caused when we engage in those exclusive practices and unjust policies. But again, thank you for coming. I'm going to pass it over to Juliet, and we're going to all introduce ourselves.
Hi, thank you for choosing our workshop today. I'm Juliet Kitchens, an associate professor and the director of graduate studies in the Department of Communication, Media, and the Arts at Nova Southeastern University. I work closely with both undergraduate and graduate students, which informs how I approach crafting policy. As we begin today, we'd like to thank our on-site tech coordinators, Hannah and Fran, for their help. And we have just a few tech requests at the start. First, we ask that if you are able, please join through Whova or Zoom, but be aware that we are going to post links and use only Whova for the chat feature. So there's no chat feature in Zoom. Please feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions and engage workshop content.
Y'all hang on for just 1 second. I'm trying to turn the volume up in the room because no one can hear.
Okay. Is this better? Hello.
They started talking and it was very soft in the speaker.
So, room control. Here we go. Okay, here we go.
Hello?
Audio content. Here we go. If you hold it down, I think this is the volume.
Okay, y'all say something again.
How's this? Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. So we asked that everyone use the Zoom feature, I'm sorry, the chat feature in Whova. You may be used to seeing it in Zoom, however, it's only available in Whova today. Please use this to ask questions and engage in the workshop content. And if you have any technical difficulties, you are welcome to use it to directly message me or Fran. We will do our best to try and resolve any tech issues you may be facing. We also hope to do a few small group activities today. We ask that you ensure that you can refer to the content in the Google Drive folder for these. The link to the folder is in Whova's chat, and I'm going to provide this link and document information in the chat as we go along today. I can try. Finally, in addition to Whova and Google Drive, we are using Poll Everywhere. If you're on a mobile device, it may appear differently than for those of you who are accessing it through laptops. Please let me or my colleague Melissa Bianchi know if you have any trouble accessing these polls. I've posted the poll link in our chat, and I will repost the Google Drive and poll links as we move through the workshop. The poll link is also available in the Google Drive documents, and the Drive folder link and a scannable QR code is available through our PowerPoint today. I'm going to now hand this over to my colleagues to introduce themselves and get us started.
Hey, hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Melissa Bianchi. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Communication, Media, and the Arts at Nova Southeastern University. I teach undergraduate courses about writing as well as video games, and I also teach courses in our graduate program in composition, rhetoric, and digital media.
Hi, everyone. My name is Claire Luckwitty. I'm also in the Department of Communication and Media and the Arts at Nova Southeastern University. I'm a professor there. I teach a variety of undergraduate courses and graduate courses, both in our writing program and also in our graduate program.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Star Van Guri. I'm also a professor in DCMA at Nova as well. And I'm the director of our composition program. So I'm largely approaching our work on policy revision from the perspective of the field of composition, both as an administrator of the program and an instructor.
And hi again, everybody. I am Adele Leon. I am new at DCMA in Nova. And I came in or started last August with the intention of bringing DEI perspectives and supporting those positive changes wherever I could. And fortunately for me, all of my colleagues here have that same drive to enact those changes. So we've been working together as a committee to revise our departmental policies to be more inclusive. And today we hope we can help you all get a sense of how you can make those similar actionable changes at your own institutions. Now we'll tell you a little bit about NSU. And if you haven't already, as you can see on the screen, let us know how you're feeling today. The Poll Everywhere link again is in the chat. Juliet just reposted it in the Whova chat. So about Nova Southeastern University. We are a not-for-profit accredited coeducational institution, and we carry Carnegie classifications of both high research and community engaged. We award undergraduate, graduate, and professional degrees across 14 colleges. We are both a Hispanic serving and veteran serving institution, and our main campus is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So as part of our university's Betty initiative, our department responded by creating a committee to update our policies with particular attention toward belonging, equity, diversity, and inclusivity. So this effort forms the foundation for our workshop today.
And just to give you some examples, we've had to account for different student populations at NSU. As of fall 2021, NSU enrolled approximately 21,000 students. About 32% of these students are undergraduates, approximately 48% are in graduate programs, and about 20% are in professional programs. Like Adele said, we are a minority majority institution with roughly 49% of our students identifying as Hispanic or Black, and an additional 20% identifying as a non-categorized minority. Of our undergraduate student population, about 66% identify as a minority, and among our graduate student population, that number is about 59%. Additionally, our student population is approximately 70% female identifying, and the average age of a full-time undergraduate is 19, 27 for graduate, and 25 for professional. These various student groups require policies that are both inclusive and flexible.
So our department, the Department of Communication, Media, and the Arts, also called DCMA, is one of 7 in the Halmos College of Arts and Sciences at Nova. We are perhaps the most overtly interdisciplinary department in our college. We house 6 undergraduate majors, 11 minors, 1 graduate program, and then our first-year composition program. We also host NSU's Mako Media Network, which includes our campus's newspaper, radio station, and television station. Our majors represent fields in communication, applied professional studies, and the performing and visual arts. And our department hosts the largest number of interdisciplinary courses and qualified experiential learning courses at NSU.
So the largest program in our department is the first year composition program. This past academic year, we had about 2,000 students enrolled in composition, and we're growing, so we anticipate that number to continue to rise. Our department has a large full-time faculty of Rhet Comp PhDs that are teaching comp, but we offer so many sections that our courses are taught primarily by adjunct faculty who have graduate degrees in Rhet Comp, literature, or creative writing. So while we need enough flexibility in our policies to suit all of these individual instructor, class, student situations and needs, as Melissa pointed out previously, we do need some degree of standardization in our policies because we need consistency across the program. Additionally, when we hire our new part-time faculty, we provide them with sample syllabi. And that's one of the primary ways that they learn about our program's values. That's one of the main ways that that's communicated to them before they even get in the classroom. So in our policy revision work, we've considered not only the student audience, but also the instructor as well, and what we're communicating about our program's values to incoming faculty. So that's a little bit of context about our university and our department. I will hand it off to Adele and we'll start our first activity.
Awesome. Thank you, Star. And yeah, thanks also for pointing out. We're glad that at least half of everybody is feeling positive today. So if you will hop into the Google Drive folder that we shared in the chat, you can navigate to the part 1 and part 2 document. What we're going to do for the first part of our workshop is look at how we met our policy standardization needs by identifying some of the assumptions that were existing in policies. So what I mean by assumptions is a presumed truth without any proof, which is often a result of a power imbalance. It privileges certain ideas or thoughts, backgrounds, cultures, etc., over others. So we realized the policy had made a handful of assumptions about our students, instructors, and classroom expectations. So we want everyone to get comfortable and start practicing identifying assumptions and policies. So we gave y'all a copy of a generic communication policy from an undergraduate syllabus. It is available in that document. I'm going to read it out loud the first time, and while you're listening, try to pay attention to any assumptions that the policy is making about students, instructors, or the class. Communication. If you have any questions or issues, it is important to communicate with me as soon as possible so that we can appropriately address the situation. My office hours and office location are listed above, and I am also available by appointment. You may also reach me via my university email, but I do not usually respond to emails during evenings and weekends. Still, you should receive a response from me within 48 hours. Please note that many issues are much better dealt with through conversation, so I encourage you to discuss them with me directly whenever possible. And so you're in the Google Doc, you can take a look. Feel free to add comments or notes or anything for yourselves, because y'all will have access to this drive forever, or at least until they cut it off. But what assumptions, if you can also hop into the poll everywhere, next question, what assumptions does this policy as is imply? And to help you think about some of those things, we also have discussion questions that we will get to in a little bit. And feel free to chat with each other as well. You can also reply as many times as you want to the poll everywhere question. It stays anonymous the whole time, and you don't have to do complete sentences.
Y'all have questions in chat. We do it in Zoom, not Zoom. I'll go with you.
I couldn't hear that if that was directed toward me.
I was telling the people in the classroom, if they have questions or chat, to be sure and do it via Hoover, not Zoom, because it's disabled in Zoom.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm loving the responses that we're getting.
Y'all have questions in the class, I'll bring the microphone around.
Sorry, I didn't know I have my phone, but I see everybody has their laptop here. I left mine in the hotel. Sorry.
That's okay.
I thought I could join, but anyway.
The poll everywhere link, you can access it through your phone. It is at the top of the presentation slide.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, I can do that.
And we also have a shortened bit.ly link for the Google Drive folder. It's bit.ly/IWAC, all lowercase, and then capital P policy.
Okay, well, I did hear the paragraph that you read from the syllabus, the templates that we are using for studies. And you are asking, what are the assumptions that are made here?
Yes.
What listening to it just one time fly by, the assumption that I see is that it seems the professor, the instructor, is assuming that the student, it's giving the students the flexibility that they can, at any one time, she gives them the parameters that they can always come and seek consultation with the instructor. Okay. So that is something that is assumed, and that the student would have the time to be able to fit this and come and seek whatever information or help that they need.
Definitely. You're spot on with that.
Yeah, that's what.
Was there a certain phrase or anything that stood out the most or most strongly for you for that?
Certain, well, it was read by one time. I'm seeing from what I heard, you said you gave the office hours, however, but you did, there was something that you said, oh, no, I am not available at weekends. I think I heard that.
You did.
Yeah, don't even try. Type of, yeah. I think that to me probably would soften that tone Yeah, that's what I see there. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely saw the word tone come up in the word cloud that everybody can see.
Yeah, just kind of building on that, if you don't mind if I
Absolutely,
hijack this
please.
for a moment. Yeah, I mean, I think like that lingo makes perfect sense from an academic and from an instructor standpoint. But I think students see that and they think, well, weekends are when I'm free. That's when I'm not working my 17, side hustles. And that's when I can actually communicate with you. So I need to be able to talk to you on weekends, even though, right, for other people, like, I mean, from the instructor's perspective, it makes perfect sense to put those parameters out there. So I think there's a bit of a tension there, right? And I think that might be part of what you guys wanted us to see.
Definitely. And remembering that this is an undergraduate, it came from an undergraduate course syllabus. And so if this is incoming freshmen reading it as well, the tone does give off a bit of, it made me feel like the instructor did not want to be contacted personally. But I want to keep hearing from y'all. Like a lot of these in the word cloud, let's see, parameters. Yeah. One-sided. Ooh, I want to talk about one-sided. Who said that?
I did. It just feels that if the instructor is speaking to the students, but there's no room for in the language use for students to insert themselves, even in their conversation when they're reading that paragraph. So, for example, a phrase that I was thinking, to if I could add to it, or revise it, would be, if these times doesn't work or these formats, please, I'll be happy to hear from you, or let me know. I want to learn from you, or something positive like that.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I meant by one-sided.
No, I think you're absolutely correct in noting all of those things. I mean, with these different tones and like the kind of vibe message it's sending, what does that suggest about, like, what assumptions about the student-teacher relationship are there? Like, imagine when that policy might have been crafted or, copied from a different class or something. Like, what assumptions is it making about the student's relationship with the instructor and vice versa?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was struck by this exercise. I'm going to answer what you're saying, in that when I first read it, okay, yeah, it sounds like what a professor would write on a syllabus. Yep. It's clear, it's efficient, it's setting the parameters. But the assumptions, I think, are the teacher's role is to make rules. The instructor's role is to sort of set this boundary and limit, and it's aggressive, though that may not have been the intention. And many of us have these words in our syllabi, and so reading the first and then reading the second, I thought, oh, so we can really think about how it's received, and there are ways to set boundaries because it's healthy, but not in this aggressive tone. And not implying that something's wrong and that a student is going to broach a boundary, or that it reminds me of what people say in K-12, this terrible advice teachers are given sometimes. Don't smile until the second month of school or third month. I don't know. They have rules about timing. And I thought, yes, don't smile at them until Thanksgiving. There you go. Who would do that?
I would not be able to do that.
Who would ever think that that's appropriate? But this is a version of that. Don't smile at them or they'll take advantage. Don't smile. It's the wrong way to be. I don't know. I could go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you're explaining it, this is very academic language. It's precise, it's to the point, it's direct. And we see it as efficient and clear because that's the world we live in. And that's how we're used to writing and communicating to each other. But we've been in this for so much longer than our students have. And without knowing us the way they've known their K through 12 teachers, elementary, middle, high school, like they get to know their teachers over time. But with us, we have them for only a semester. And so there's not that established relationship there. While we think we're being efficient and direct and helpful, it does create more of a distance with this tone.
Just to, can you hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay, to piggyback off what Delia was saying, I think that was really, well said, that we all have this language in our past or in our materials or in our own training. And I think it's that distinction of thinking about, are we expecting students to come college ready, or are we ourselves asking ourselves to be student ready? And what does that mean for our diverse populations of students? And are we being really intentional, in the way we think about parenting from the 70s and 80s may not be replicated now. I think we have to put that same onus on ourselves. There's that line in the paragraph about preferred communication. And I couldn't help wondering, like, whose preferred communication? It did very much feel like the instructor's preferred communication is to do this. And we all see the value of sitting down and having a conversation with students. But if you are an international student, if you have been working for 24 hours and you're exhausted, if your English fluency is still developing, different modes of communication might be more effective for you. And so it's also honoring all of the ways in which students show up to our classes.
Yeah, and honestly, I love the student ready language that you just used. Like, are they instructor ready, but are we student ready? Because when we look, and we asked everybody to bring any policy from a syllabus that you want. Like when we look at those policies from our own institutions with a new mindset or from a new perspective that is student ready, all of these things start to stand out, and how things are different over time. I mean, we all lived through Zoom school, COVID, everything like that, and that changed everything anyway. So the tone, we know communicating via text message, I can't italicize in a text. So how are my students supposed to understand anything inferred without me giving them room to hear it in a way that's not direct to the point and emotionless? Yeah.
Hi. Just one thing that I noticed is that the opening sentence uses the word issues, and then the final sentence also emphasizes issues. So I feel like this sort of like sandwiching the whole policy is that communication is about dealing with problems. Issues I read as problems, as opposed to communication is about dealing with people on all sorts of different levels other than just the problems they might have with the instructor. And so I thought that there could be some room for the policy to be a little bit more open to the possibility of dealing with the student in some manner other than just the issue is that might arise in the class.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't even realize like the sandwich with that word back to back like that, or beginning and end. Because yeah, it does. It completely frames it as communication is a problem. So if you have a problem, you have to communicate it, and it's going to be a problem. It's just not student friendly at all. And I know that a lot of these policies get crafted in relation to like a university-wide policy. But when we think about who's reading which policies, instructors might be reading the university policies more so than students, depending. But with the overall messaging, like the assumptions that are made for, I know we've been focusing on students, but the assumptions that are made for instructors as well, or the classroom environment, are really showing through. Does anybody want to talk about non-student related assumptions with this policy? So when Star was talking about onboarding instructors who get to know us through the policies they see, could be a starting point, but I believe somebody might have been starting to respond.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this isn't a problem where I teach, but I know at a lot of places, adjuncts don't have offices. So assuming that you have given your people an office is there.
Or that the office stays in the same place or isn't like one shared cubicle. Definitely been there. Any other comments?
guess-
First, yeah.
I think in a semi-positive way, I think it's good that the person is setting out expectations about evenings and weekends as well as a 48-hour response time, because students frequently don't have realistic expectations for response. So saying you may have to wait before you hear from me, but also that I'm free to not work on the evenings and weekends, even though it's problematic for our students' accessibility to faculty, especially adjuncts, also need to be able to set some boundaries. So, I mean, I think there's a better way to do this, but I just want to point that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that giving an expectation of a time frame to hear back from an email reply, I think that's helpful. No matter what the time frame is, it's helpful for the student to know. Sometimes, 48 hours might be too long, depending, who knows. But yeah, I agree. Like, clearly stating an expectation is very important, but it comes back to how it's delivered or stated that we've all been talking about. And yeah, we have to protect our faculty as well. And, if adjuncts teaching at multiple universities or institutions with 6 classes or something, they can't have it one office at one school. And so they do need to be able to have their own flexibility with this. Awesome, thank you. So now that we have talked about what assumptions have been made in policies, we're going to move into part 2, which is addressing these assumptions. So in considering what makes a policy actually inclusive, we're going to move down in that same part 1 and part 2 document and look at the revised policy on communication. So as you look at that, I'm not going to read it aloud, but I want you to observe first just the changes that were made and how they address the assumptions that we all just identified. I'm not sure if we're going to do small groups, but we can put online virtual participants in a breakout room. And then in the conference room, I'm not sure how many, but if you want to get into a small group or 2, maybe like 5 people, 4 people.
There's 10 here, so that works.
Perfect. Yeah, so talk about the revisions and changes, but focus more specifically on the ones that are addressing the assumptions and that are supporting inclusion. And then you'll respond to the next poll everywhere question. And again, they're anonymous. You can enter as many responses as you would like. Essentially, just what do you notice about those changes, or what could be the effects of those changes? Oh, are we able, Juliet, are we able to do the breakout rooms?
We are. I just started one. I
perfect.
put the online participants that I could find and star into room 1.
Perfect. And for those of you in the conference room, if you want to chat with us about it or bounce ideas around, we are here as well. And y'all, there is space in the Google Doc at the bottom for small group notes. I'm not sure that we've labeled group 1, 2, 3, or 4, but you can change your group name if you'd like, if you're adding notes in a group. And seeing more typing in the Google Doc than poll everywhere responses. So I think that means we can start discussing everything. The issue is still an issue. That did make me chuckle with the sentence. Does anybody want to start us off or talk about something you've added to the poll everywhere? There's still, yes, there are still issues. The language use, legalese, sounding. Or I can start us off with a general question. What are the effects of the changes that were made? Negative or positive?
Can you put the breakout room box and move out from in front of you? Thanks, Jessica, sorry.
And what I'm saying is speaker view, so they get bigger. I don't even know, like.
Possibly it's the breakout rooms writing in the Google Doc that I'm looking at. And they will be coming back soon. So for my people in the conference room, just not necessarily discussing it all yet, but what changes did you notice? Okay.
Hi, we're putting notes on the Google Drive, so I don't know if y'all can see those. Group
gotcha.
1 and group 3 have notes.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, we can get started discussing based on any of the group's responses, or again, getting started with first, like what were the differences and then what effect did those changes have?
So one of the things that we noticed was that the first policy had sort of a more personal tone than the second one. The second one is very legalistic, very sort of like, this is the university policy, and the instructor source seems to be almost invisible, is no longer sort of present any longer, in that this is just sort of a record of, this is what the university policy is. And so that was one of the things that we noticed. Yes.
Yeah, there's no use
Yeah.
of the word my.
And we really felt that this sort of made communication more intimidating and dangerous, because it sounds like just by contacting a professor, the student could be violating some kind of important code or policy, especially if these are new students. I think the first one was intimidating in that it put all the onus on the student to initiate communication, which I think for many first-year students, and then for many groups within those first-year students, is problematic. This sounds like the stakes are even higher now, and it still isn't mutual. It still isn't two-way. It's on the student, who could violate some technology policy if they do it wrong. And so it felt to us like it was less human and more intimidating.
Did the intimidation factor go up because it references another policy? Or
Yes.
do
Do I have the floor? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm Rosemary, and this here, I can relate very much to this. Probably I may be the only one in the room here that is from a university that is for profit.
Yes, please share your insights.
So, because we are for profit, every single document of ours has to be reviewed by our lawyers. Why? Well, because any slight violation, my university happened to have a clientele of students who are from very privileged background, and the parents would not hesitate to take you to court. So I wanted the forum here to realize that there are people with that would want that. There are no ambiguities. This is what it is. So you know what the complicate, if you violate, that's what it is. So because they've been beaten before, so they have to protect themselves. So that's what I wanted to bring to the group. Okay.
Well said.
And it sounds like a lot of people pointed out that same level of like language, almost exclusivity, where it's more one-sided. And so with this revised version, I feel like it implies different assumptions, but how would this revision or version rather, how could it change to be more inclusive as opposed to from the first one? Because if this made the first one almost more exclusive.
Well, I think, yeah, I think one mistake in this second one was to go to this third person. I think keeping the second person would have been helpful. Another thing too would be just to kind of say like, I understand So first person, I understand that issues will arise from time to time. And, such issues may include things like, questions about the, course material, questions about tardies, absences, course policies, right? Providing a short list of examples of the kind of things that students are likely to want to ask about, and then making them feel comfortable with asking those kinds of questions. And even maybe going so far as to say, I put something in my syllabus that's similar to this, like, some questions are easily answered via an email. However, more involved things, right? And we all have that student who wants to write the, like, well, tell me about, the notion of the master-slave dialectic, right? In an email, like, well, let's have a conversation about, like, let's talk about this, right? Over a Zoom call or whatever during office hours. Let's not try to, like, because what you're doing is you're asking me to write like a 3,000 word article, and I don't think that's the best genre or format or medium rather for this. So I think, there's a way that you can overdo it, but I think like you could probably make some of those crucial distinctions in a couple of hundred words if you were really to put some thought into it. And that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I mean, the bulleted list of examples, that's one thing our committee ended up doing with the our policies that we were revising. And it makes it more clear, especially to students who aren't aware of what the mystery expectations are for communication, for example. And that first person does make it feel like more of a transition from like K through 12 to college, or like a big class to a small class, or vice versa. Because we all teach in comp smaller classes, but we have in our department so many different like media, arts, communication, everything that don't have the luxury of such a small class. And so in these policies, I agree, making it personalized, the first person thing is very helpful for students. And then, I mean, I remember being an undergrad and not knowing what office hours were supposed to even be used for. So those examples are super helpful. What else are y'all seeing or thinking that you would do with yours? You're not doing it yet. You're not revising yours yet, but.
So one of the things we've started doing is establishing community norms together as a class. So I usually put in this section something like, in terms of communication, we will be working together to establish our community norms, and we'll all agree to abide by them, that they'll be, co-constructed. So I think that the idea that students have some say in, that they're not just the victims of policies, but that they have some say in how interactions that are vital to their future will play out is important.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because one issue that happens a lot, and it kind of brings it back to, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was talking about the for-profit college language, is there are limitations that everyone will have to work within when revising policies that the institution enforces. So the fact that you can like do yours with community norms, are you able to put that into policy, or is it more like my personal classroom policies?
We can basically do whatever we want with, but I'm at a lovely Slack, so it's I have it a lot easier, and I know that's a luxury not everyone has.
My undergrad times were at a Slack. It was also lovely too.
Yeah. From for the Profit University, my name is Rosemary. Rosemary as in the spice. So yeah. So I teach chemistry. I don't know are there any other people here in the sciences? So our clientele, my university, my clientele are those who are headed for medical school, dental school, pharmacy. Those are healthcare providers. That's our specialty. That's all we deal with. Okay. Having said that, now we have the flexibility of toning down, which I do, to make it very, initially, as you can see, I didn't sign up for this, but I switched around. I said, I want to see what goes on in the syllabus. At least let me see what I can do to improve my syllabus. But definitely in terms of, you would see things in my syllabus that say, of course, as a professor, you have that, it's your class within the parameters of the law. I mean, legal to protect the university, but it's my class. So I write things like, you can always see me, some type of friendly tone. They are freshmen, and many of them are that brilliant. They come to us at age 15. They are very young. 15 in the university, I mean, they are straight A students. My clientele doesn't need they don't need, they know what they want. They are coming to us that well prepared in terms of with their career path, what they want to be. Like I haven't met, both the parents are medical doctors, so they know what they want. They come to us very young. So I see it as a parent that they need that nurturing. While it's a transition, they are coming from high school to college very young, 15, 16, 17 max, they're already there. So, and we have different pathways, 2+4. By the time they are 20, they're already in medical school. So that's the sort of clientele. So I tone it down. I do in my syllabus. They are children to me. They are still children. So to make it friendly so they can still come to me, or at least to me, teaching chemistry, which people dread, and still do well. So that welcoming environment. My thing is, I always flip the table and say, if I were in their position, what would be welcoming to me? And that's how I tailor it without violating legal.
Yeah,
So
of course.
we as professors, we can do a lot.
Yeah, and I think it all points to the focus and value of communication, using communication to resolve issues, and having open communication with our local community, which would be our classroom. It changes every semester, and the people who are a part of that community need to help construct that. But I need to pass it over now to Melissa for part 3. Thank you so much, everyone.
Right. So now that we've had practice identifying and addressing assumptions in syllabus policies, let's work on locating exclusions. So exclusions are factors, conditions, or circumstances that are overlooked or even intentionally ignored by a policy. Generally, exclusions work against facilitating inclusivity by privileging some information or audiences over others, and can arise from the assumptions we've kind of talked about in part 1 and 2. So for example, we might take a look at a couple of technology policies, and these should be available in the Google Drive in part 3. And these are here to help you practice locating exclusions in written policies. Each policy contains exclusions as well as assumptions that privilege particular ideas and audiences. In this next part of the workshop, you will work in groups to locate exclusions arising from assumptions using the guiding questions provided. Those questions are also in the Google Drive file. And then we'll talk as a group about what it is we find when looking at these 2 policies. Okay. Any questions before we get started? All right. And feel free to use the Google document to take notes as you have in part 1 and 2. In-person group, we have about 1 more minute to kind of solidify your thoughts before we start talking. Welcome back, those of you that are in a breakout room. We have about 1 more minute before we kind of reconvene. Okay, so let's have a conversation about some of the things that we found to be sort of excluded or omitted from these policies. Does anybody want to get us started with what they thought were some obvious exclusions in the 2 policies provided? See, we've got a laundry list in the Google Drive. So sometimes when it comes to like figuring out what's being excluded or omitted or what's being assumed, I like to kind of group things by category. I think like, people, places, things, right? So in terms of people, I think some of the exclusions in these policies are definitely what's been identified here in the Google Doc. So who wrote here about neurodiversity? It looks like multiple people.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about that there are a lot of different participation styles. There are a lot of different discussion styles, some of which might be like, being an introvert is one, but also students who are neurodiverse learners, students who have different hearing abilities. This is a pretty narrow version of what good participation looks like. And doesn't really allow for kind of the wealth of ways that students could be actually engaging with material that might not on first glance necessarily look like what is captured in these policies.
Great, yeah, that's fantastic. And that was also something that, I felt was a major problem with these policies, was that they were not accounting for not only the different ways we practice participation, but also the different possibilities in terms of platforms we use for participation. What other exclusions or assumptions did we see?
Just really quickly though, on that point, I want to call attention that it was a technology policy, not a participation policy. So we can evaluate what it does to exclude participation in terms of participation credit, but without seeing the participation policy in the syllabus, it might be overly harsh. But what it doesn't account for in the use of technology is what kind of assistive technologies might be, so it might be the case that the person with their tablet open is using it for gaming or something other than what you want them to be doing, or it might be there to be an assistive reader or translator, write translation software for non-native speakers or things like that. So in that sense, there are other things that these could be used for other than those specifically specified that still might be contributing to the students' learning in the classroom.
Okay.
Regardless of whether or not whether they're like directly contributing to the discussion.
Okay. Does anyone agree with that statement?
Absolutely. And I think that one of the comments I was going to make before I can make now, because I keep having this same response. I think what is missing from this, as well as the policies we looked at before, is relationship and the idea that there are reasons for setting these policies, and that you can in a sentence say, I don't know, I strive to build a collaborative community, of learners. Therefore, or something, like as an instructor, I will turn off my phone when I enter class, and I, ask that you do the same. Like something joint, something mutual, something that sort of, there's a reason for the setting of these things that seem harsh when we don't provide some context. Or it's the meta, like the behind the scenes. What is an instructor doing by setting this policy? What's behind it? What's the reasoning? What's the point of it all? I feel like that keeps being ignored in these.
Okay. Does anyone have a similar perspective or a different one? Disagree?
I'll add a comment.
Okay.
Because one thing that has consistently been brought up is the length of a syllabus. And so with each policy, adding that explanation or personalization of it might add too much length to a syllabus. I'm just playing devil's advocate, but I mean, on day one of class, I think verbally giving those examples 100% should be an expectation for all of us. And finding ways to weave it in, like with the first person language, would be very doable at any institution, just changing first person, things like that. But I feel I can see myself adding too many examples, I guess, is where I'm seeing me go overboard with that.
We talked about that a little bit in our group, that's part of the problem is if you want to allow for every exception and every condition and every circumstance, that you could end up with this big list that also ends up sounding like a contract, and it ends up sounding very legalistic. One thing I was thinking about as you were talking is, I think with a different tone and a different use of language, that then opens the door for students being able to come to you and say, I'm expecting an emergency call, or there's this thing going on. I think if you have a more welcoming policy, a more welcoming language, you don't have to list every single thing, because students feel they have the ability to tell you their thing, right? Unless it's something that's not officially documented, as an accommodation, that they can come and say, I have this particular need. Can you work with me on this? I think the language right now doesn't really open that door very effectively, but I think there are ways to craft the language without a list of everything that could happen that will allow students to bring their particular circumstances to you too. And that's where the mutual part, I think, comes in. I think setting that tone that we're all in this together, how do we work together as effectively as possible, is a different message from you will not do the following. I think that would make a big difference.
I love these responses because they're kind of hinting at the answers to this last question here of how maybe some of us do work with, addressing these omissions and these assumptions by maybe thinking carefully about our tone and our style of writing, or maybe thinking about the broader context, right? That this, this technology policy, how does it sit next to a participation policy? How does it sit next to the way we introduce the syllabus during class and talk about it as a group, right? So there are pieces that are missing here that might help us better get at how we address these things beyond what's maybe written on the digital document or the handout that is the syllabus. What were some other assumptions or omissions that we noticed about these two technology policies? So to recap, we've talked a little bit about assumptions about students and how they might use technology for their learning. We've talked a little bit about how we maybe view technology, whether it's primarily a distraction or could be used as a tool to engage with education. What about the space of the classroom? How is that maybe addressed or not addressed in these technology policies?
I think it's interesting how technology is being framed as something that's done in isolation, and the classroom as being something that happens collaboratively. So like if you're using technology, you're not collaborating, you're isolating yourself and therefore removing yourself from the rest of the class.
Mm-hmm. Right. And oh, go ahead.
I was just wondering about if you were talking about room configuration and outlets, like are there enough outlets? Is the Wi-Fi signal strong enough to support everyone? Is that what you were getting at with the space of the classroom, or were you?
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. I also think that, beyond the space of the classroom, we might also think about what technology is offered by our universities. I don't know, how many of you teach in a classroom that has like things like computers available to students? I see hands, I can kind of make out hands going up, right? So,
There's 5 hands here.
Yeah. Do these policies speak to what students are supposed to do with those technologies, or what they could do or could not do? Kathleen, are you raising your hand? Or are you just?
Yeah, but for me, our students come, all of them come with their laptops to class. If you tell them to come, they all have. So they don't need the university laptop. However, we have a computer room for laptop with computers for if we are having computational chemistry, they can go there and run the program, and because it requires quite a bit of space, computer space. So they may not want to load it on their laptop, but it's there but all of them have laptops. So I don't know. That's just, and so if we are talking about access to computers, everybody has one. And in the classroom, if they needed, if say they forgot their laptop, there are computers in the university for them to use. So access is one thing. If my colleagues here could speak to those who, of course, mine could be at the extreme, where everybody comes ready, they have it. So I don't have to think of, is there anybody other than, oh, I forgot my laptop. Not that I don't have one. Mine is I
Isn't yours
forgot.
in your hotel room?
Like I do.
I think another thing about like the room configuration, if it does already have technology in it, that is may or may not assume that the instructor using that room or being assigned that room has integrated that tech into their curriculum anyway.
And I wanted to add the opposite end of the spectrum. I have students who don't have technology, don't have laptops, don't have. And one of the ways that I think this should be changed in the document is not leave it as, if you have questions or concerns, please be in touch with me. You know, that's sensitive information and a student may not want to tell you. So I would say, put it right here. Therefore, you know, we at the college have laptops. Click on this link, fill out this form. Here are the steps. Like, equip them rather than like punish them or scare them in the way these things are scary or you know, legalese. Give it to them right then and there, and then offer to be available. If you know, if this, you know, doesn't work or you need more, I'm here to help you, you know, to ensure you're equipped for class. So it's a lot of the helping is missing from here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think there is a middle ground between the not having the laptops and having the laptops. You know, I've found that in my teaching, I've got students who, you know, have laptops, but not, you know, they're using Apples. So the technology is not compatible with the ways they might use Canvas or Microsoft Word. And then they struggle with technical issues. And, you know, saying, yeah, come to me with questions and concerns is not enough, right? So I often find that I'm linking them to, here are the help pages you might need. Here are the resources in case you find yourself in that situation. And I do think that that kind of circles back to this, you know, thinking through the reasons why a student might have a problem with technology. And rather than maybe trying to account for all of the things, at least give them the tools to find answers up front, rather than making them feel like it has to be this kind of coming to, you know, the professor with concerns and taking time that maybe they don't feel comfortable taking. You know, I also think this kind of circles back to what we talked a little bit about in part 1 and 2, is like anticipating, you know, how a student might understand this or read this. There is, I think, something to be said for empathy in trying to craft effective policies. And that might be one way to kind of think through, you know, the handling of possible omissions or assumptions in the way we write these policies.
I
Does
think
that make
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I wanted to add that one thing all of us can do, because we deliver our syllabi online, is adding a link. Like, that doesn't detract from anything. It can only help. And I am assuming, but I feel like every syllabus is made available online. So adding a hyperlink is helpful and easy and very relevant.
I don't know if this is about exclusion and inclusion particularly, but I think, and this doesn't necessarily apply if you're mostly teaching people who are under 18 or in whatever the age of legal majority is in whatever country you're in. But it also seems a little bit to me, in terms of how I think about my classroom and my experience of being in college, is that treating students like adults who can make their own choices. So like I've never really appreciated it when I've had colleagues who start their lectures by asking students to close their laptops, because I sort of thought one of the freedoms of moving out of the K through 12 environment in the United States, with its in loco parentis mentality of teachers' responsibilities to students, to college, where students are adults, is that you got to make your own choices about how you were going to engage in your classes. And while I understand from an instructional perspective why certain behaviors can be frustrating, from thinking of myself as a student, the ability to choose whether or not I was going to do things that were productive for my own learning, but that was my responsibility for me to do. In some sense, these policies seem to be taking away that onus and that opportunity. And maybe that goes back to the comment earlier about why the requests are made, and maybe phrasing it more in terms of requests rather than policies, to give that opportunity for students to make their own decisions about what their priorities are relative to it. I mean, I like to also tell students that I also get to make my determinations about what my priorities are, and if our priorities don't match, and you know, then that might have grading consequences. But you know, I think that's another thing to think about, is how much authority are we giving students to make their own decisions and how we describe these. Yeah, agency. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that these two policies have some very interesting assumptions about what kind of agency students have, right? Can they make decisions for themselves about how they use technology, or do they need to be told what is and is not okay? And one of those, allows for certain possibilities in their education, and another, allows for a very different kind of engagement with the classroom. And so, this is how, being wary of what gets excluded, not just in terms of like, the practices in the classroom, but also our ideologies about students and the university and its function are kind of called into question by the way we write these policies. It's a lot at stake. It's a lot at stake in what seems sometimes just like a small little paragraph, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting that, the conversations previously about how much information can we add to a policy, and we're seeing two very different tech policies here. One is much longer than the other, like very short and sweet. Is that helpful? Not always. And then longer, also not always helpful. So I don't know if there's not really a standard length that we're trying to meet either. So it could be short and sweet and inclusive and supportive and helpful. And I'm saying that because we're going to be revising policies more later, but it's interesting to see the messaging in both instances.
Well, on that note, then, do we want to take a short 10-minute break and then reconvene to start working on writing some policies? Okay.
Bio break.
Everyone
Right.
says yes.
Yeah.
Back-
All right.
Back in at 5 o'clock or Eastern. I don't know where everybody is.
Yeah, 5 Eastern.
Not so bad.
Sorry.
Not so bad.
No.
This is a hilly campus, so I got a lot more than that. Just going from my car to my classes.
Big campus.
Where are you from?
I'm from Boston.
Okay.
From BU.
Oh, I have a student who's transferring up there.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. His name is Eric Ubakanic. He's from Croatia. He was majoring in architecture. I think he's changing. And whoever gets him will be a fortunate individual because he can write his tail off.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah.
And he's very creative. Like in my freshman English class, I give them free writes to start the class. And usually the first one is, what is your least favorite creature? And he wrote Jabba the Hutt. Most of them say spiders or snakes.
Right.
He wrote Jabba the Hutt.
Good for him.
What do you think?
I teach, I also teach freshman writing classes. We had compensation writing courses. And instructor for WID also. Writing in the disciplines.
Okay.
So, so essentially everything is not first year writing.
Oh, so pretty big coursework.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't teach it so much as I direct. And so hopefully get people in the disciplines teaching writing.
Yeah.
Sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
I'm a second year PhD student.
We are, okay.
Well, technically second year now.
Right, all right. Are punching students primarily from South Carolina, from the southeast, or
Oh, everywhere.
everywhere?
For just the program I'm in, we have students from as far away as Ghana.
Right, yeah. Yeah, BU also is very international population. 25% of our undergraduates are international students. Yeah. And that was a very intentional thing on the part of the administration. Session. You look internationally as well. We're going to get students from around the world. That way we can get students, you know, students in the United States or perhaps maybe not deciding to spend all the money that they have in life savings and their future savings that go to college.
I think here at Clemson, we adjusted our admission requirements in 2008 to get more students. And I think it's changed again now. It's a flood of students. But at that point, we had trouble with numbers of instructors because more students came in, so they had to figure that out. So program, there's not an English PhD program here. It's rhetorics, communication, and information science.
Yeah, so BU has an English department, undergraduate PhD, master's and PhD program. No rhetoric. No, we don't train anybody in comp rep. So.
I had never taken a rhetoric class until now
Yeah.
in my life. I'm a trained writer. I can write it. I can write anything.
Yep.
As far as rhetoric, I've never had.
Right, right.
So
We
this
learn
past
all,
year.
huh? What's your hobby?
Well, I'm here more for the communication part.
Right, okay.
Because that's what I've done my whole life.
Yeah.
I'm a creative nonfiction writer.
Okay, yeah.
3 books. So that's what I do.
What'd you write about?
It's faith-based.
Great.
Like, for instance, the first one is about a year that my late husband spent in Alaska when he was 19 years old. Missionary. No, 80 below zero. and all the things he did. So it's things like that. Fun. What? What's your training and experience then?
So, American Studies. American Studies and Literature and History is on purpose. You know, writing program for you, so teaching that. And as I said, we have competent courses, and so I teach a class on Lincoln.
Oh.
Lincoln and his legacies.
What's your favorite one to see?
Sorry?
What's your favorite one to see?
Of my topic?
Yeah.
I'm teaching that one. Wow. So I think about Emerson, Emerson and the circles, or oratory. That's a different problem. About Lincoln. Big hat, afraid to sleep. Save you.
Grew up in a log cabin in
Yeah,
Illinois.
there you go. Log
Right.
cabin again. This is very kind of simplistic understanding of Lincoln, simplistic understandings of sort of slavery and Civil War. So do a little sort of, myth busting, And some students become on this sort of like simplistic and then not idealistic, but sort of like these, oh yeah, we can hate the slaves, we love them. We hated slavery. It was a lot more complicated than that. Then they go, oh man. We show some things that show it was a man of his time,
Downward Southerners like to say Lincoln was only their president for about 2 years.
How do you know?
Right. Plus
Yeah.
they years.
The Confederates.
That's right. Look up on sleepwalkers. Jefferson Davis was my president. Just telling you what I've heard.
I'm sure.
Not what I think.
I'm sure you know that.
Yeah, it is.
But it's a good class to teach,
Yeah.
because then you sort of like, they learn something, then they try to figure out, well, going through those sort of like idealism, that sort of like loss of idealism is sort of like
It's like picking up everything we're saying, so I'm up for it.
All right, for those of you who are in the room, I can't really see, is everyone back and ready? Can you hear me? I think we might be waiting on a few people to get back. So we'll give them another minute or so.
Claire, we have a thumbs up that they can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So I guess I'll go ahead and get started, and then if someone, if others want to trickle in, that's totally fine. So welcome back, everyone. As we kind of regroup from the break, I kind of want to briefly recap what we've accomplished so far for this workshop. We've discussed ways to address assumptions in syllabi policies. We also looked at locating exclusions in these policies. And we talked about ways to revise them. For example, we talked about giving students more agency in our policies. So for this next activity, we're going to go ahead and look at our own syllabi policies. And we're going to be using the document titled Part 4 in that Drive folder that we shared with you before the conference. So if you can navigate your way to Part 4, And what we have here is a document that will help you with your own revisions today. And as you can see in that document, we have a couple of questions that can help you think through revising your own policies. So if you recall, in the pre-workshop email and materials that we sent you, we asked that you bring with you to this conference a syllabi policy from your own institution to work on. So that's what we're going to do in this next part. So if you haven't already done so, go ahead and get that out. And I'm going to give you about 25 minutes or so to work on your own policy and to kind of think about some of the things that we discussed today as we looked at those example policies that we provided you. As you're working today on your own policy and thinking through some of the questions that we have in that document, we're here to help you. So if you have questions, I think Juliet's going to be manning the chat function. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat function as you're working on revising your own policy. And then once everyone has had a chance to work on that, we're going to come back together as a group and talk about some of the changes that we've thought about making to our own policies. So let's go ahead and get started by looking at our own policy and working through some of those questions in that Part 4 document.
If anyone isn't looking at the Google Doc right now, Claire is adding some info in there. If you want to share your own policy, feel free to copy and paste it in the Google Doc as well.
It depends on us. It depends on they are to meet the argument why you feel that the grade that you are giving them. That's a big thing.
You basically spend a lot of time defending your grading.
Oh, absolutely. So you
better read it right.
You better read it right.
No,
Otherwise,
first
a grade at first would be fun.
Yeah, no kidding.
Grade appeal. It's right there in the syllabus. The students can be reading their grade.
There it is.
Okay. Grade appeal.
In this case, specific means to why you not agree.
Grade appeal.
I want to read it.
5 business days. After the final grade is due. Sorry, and Friday counts as a business day, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
5 business days. We didn't.
But you just hold your breath when classes end.
Yes.
You just hold your breath
Yes.
and think, oh,
That's many people. Yeah. So we just once like student last spring, no fall, submitted a grade appeal to me. And in the grade appeal, you read it, and I said, hello, Masha. I'm in the seat of I am in the seat of your great appeal. However, comma, or period. Then open. However, you did not meet the guideline for great appeal. Therefore, your great appeal is denied. Thank you. Do you know why the great appeal was denied? Well, 5 business days window. Exactly. And to the minute, 5 p.m. The students submitted it after 5 p.m. denied. Something great appeal. And in the great appeal, you will believe this. Remember how this so you have to teach them how to be professionals.
Hello, everyone. Have we had enough time to work individually?
Put together.
Or together.
Together.
All right, so welcome back. We are now in part 5 of the workshop today. So we're getting there. It's been so fun and helpful to see the revision happening in the doc in real time. So if you're not in there, look in the part 4 document and you can see what people have been doing to revise their policies. What today has really highlighted for me is that we can't do it all in our policies, and we always have to pick and choose. And I really enjoyed everyone's perspectives on kind of seeing what you value individually, whether it's first person voice or student agency, or considering introverted students when we discuss collaboration or access to technology. All of these insights that you've shared have been really helpful for me. So now that we've worked to revise to create a more equitable, a more accessible syllabus policy, I'd like everyone to share what you prioritize. So what did you choose? What did you value most in these revisions in the short time that you had to work on them? And we can do that by first contributing to the poll in the part 5 document. I'll give you a couple minutes for that and then we'll discuss. But the question is, what considerations did you prioritize in revising your policy just now? So take a minute to complete the poll and then we will discuss.
In competition, yeah, the open style, you know, that kind of thing, in front of also, I think the syllabus should be like helpful and we should have links to, you know, the resources, yeah. Yeah, of course, yeah, it's some good stuff there.
So I'm already seeing themes about the teacher's role, right? That our job is to support students. Our job is not to make assumptions that they're out there to behave badly, right? Or that there are going to be issues, but instead to say, how can I best support them? How can I help them? The idea of being overly wordy or of tone. So there's some writing style considerations coming through here. I also appreciated the comment about scary language, because I, until today, hadn't really thought about how the language we use in our syllabi can be so different from the language that students use. So I noticed in the very first policy we shared today, even the word appointment, right? Like office hours are by appointment. Like that's such a faculty member kind of word. Students don't think about appointments when they think about having conversations, you know, with their friends or with even trusted adults. They think about doctor's appointments. So thinking about how we can use words in our syllabi that show that we support them, right? Not just the actions. And then of course, a lot about student agency here, lack of necessary knowledge. In this group right here, our policy revision committee, we've had discussions about the curriculum and our values and how we're communicating that to students and whether it's coming through effectively in our syllabi. And so I'm seeing some of those topics as well. Anybody want to talk through your responses to the poll in a little bit more depth, like the example of hidden curriculum? What's meant by that? Who wrote that?
Good one.
I did. So yeah, I wrote hidden curriculum because my policy that I was working on is about ethical writing, plagiarism, and I feel oftentimes I'm in first year writing. Freshmen are really afraid of plagiarizing, and I think they also don't know the different forms of plagiarism. But I also wrote overly wordy because there are links in my syllabus that just take you to huge walls of text. So yeah, kind of trying to decide what is the most important to include in a concise way is what I was trying to work on. And I did add an exclamation point to make it seem friendlier.
The exclamation point friendliness thing with emails, and definitely that's a thing, like I feel with you. I feel for you on that one.
Hello, so for just to continue the conversation about plagiarism, in my syllabus, I do include some words on plagiarism and the different forms of plagiarism. In fact, as much as the document is here, I was just sharing before about my syllabus, we even have already updated to include AI, because many of the students we found with AI coming in, they have something to write, they give it to AI, and not knowing that the professors we have to be up to date in whatever technology is available. And we were able to, the writing professor, my colleague, was able to quickly flag it that it was written by AI, and the student had to be invited for conversation. It's a freshman, so we understand that. So it is part of the syllabus that you have to talk about AI as a form of plagiarism. So the instructor would be able to, it depends on the instructor. There are some that welcome the students to use AI, but give credit accordingly that they did preliminary not investigation, literature search, and found that AI could be very useful to get you going. But after that, yeah, there has to be boundaries as to when you cross it and what would be the consequences under the category of plagiarism. So AI. Thank you.
I can share something. I just want to say two things. I learned a lot from talking with Rosemary about her experiences in in a for-profit institution, and just kind of the legalese that is required there, and the lack of flexibility in terms of these policies. So that was really eye-opening for me to see that. The other thing I had, I just kind of wanted to echo what others have said about kind of, I was hoping that perhaps we could talk later maybe about some of the approaches people have taken to AI policies in their civil life. I have a policy that I kind of pulled off the internet, you know. Actually, I had ChatGPT write it for me. I have a policy that I pulled from an article, higher ed article that I bought from school, and I cited it, yes. But I would be very curious if your later. I don't want to hijack the conversation, but later, thank you.
No, that's okay. I think everyone at every institution right now is scrambling to write an AI policy, so we can definitely discuss that. Anybody who posted your revision in part 4 want to talk us through what you did? Because there's some really great stuff happening here. There's comments. We've a lot of collaborative work. If anybody who posted a policy wants to talk through, because then we can all look at it and see the language.
So I'm definitely not posting this as like, this is the best thing ever. But I posted the one that says technical requirements and that there's room underneath. And I took that from, you know, what I had created before, and I had already put in these links because I've been engaged in some of the syllabus revision already. You know, I've already been giving it the once over, the twice over, and that's why I wanted to deepen my work today. So yeah, so I do have the links. That was a change that I had made. I don't know, I feel like I'm giving them a sense of what they need to have and then where to get it so that they can be successful. I put in the 4 Zoom sessions, like I kind of didn't want to because I felt like, but I put it in, and that I haven't changed from what it was before. And I'm bossing them around. Like I really am saying, you know, you need to do this. So I don't know, I welcome feedback on like that and what, when I wrote it, I was being really clear in terms of what's expected because my students are people who are going to be teachers. I'm in the education program. And I think that that adds some context to the kinds of things that I try to teach. What is professional behavior and what does that look like? And as teachers, they won't be able to be in a Zoom with their camera off. So that's why I have things like you have to have the camera on. And that isn't the case for every class in my college or every class that I teach, but this is a field course and they're already doing Zoom teaching, and I put these things in the syllabus so that it creates dialogue. It puts a pin in something that we can then talk more deeply about in class, because you can't capture it all here. So I'm putting some things and then we can talk about it.
So I welcome feedback and thoughts.
I appreciate that you shared some of the context because that's so critical. And that's one of the issues with doing these exercises, right? With these decontextualized policies is that we can give feedback and we can help each other out, but we don't know those sort of contextual factors. So that's really helpful to know.
Yeah, I'm curious a little bit as, I guess I could say what level, but that's only to ask. With the first link, the student checklist, when I was reading through the top part, I'm assuming the link following, including the laptop loan program and then a student checklist, but the word checklist doesn't connect with, for me, to a loan program. So is it like qualifications in order to loan out a laptop, or is that something that your students have come across before and they'll know what that means? And that's why I was asking what level, like if they're already familiar.
They may or may not already be familiar, but that student checklist link is not something I created. It's a college link. And so when they go to it, our college president pops up and it says, are you ready for academic success? And they cover a number of things. And one of those things is the laptop loan. So I feel like overall, I'm also linking them to our website because they don't go there and they don't access the tools that our college provides. So by putting it there, and I tried to phrase it, you know, click here, it's regarding how to be ready for the semester ahead, including laptop loan. So like I'm lumping.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense now that you said it. I feel like that would be a day one when we go over things kind of question and answer. It's far clearer to me.
Does anyone else have other feedback to share on that policy, or would you want to talk us through some of the changes that you made to your own?
So I included some examples of like what plagiarism and fabrication specifically look like, and included like some brief definitions. I figured the examples would be helpful because I feel like a lot of times like the language we use in like syllabuses and for core values like aren't necessarily super accessible to students. And yeah, kind of one of the things I was debating was like briefly mentioning something about how like intention like affects how the review board would process you, but I almost don't want to arm a student who might take advantage of that, if that makes sense.
So you added the list under plagiarism and fabrication?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We did the same thing in our committee recently. We added what plagiarism includes. I think it's one of those assumptions, you know, that don't plagiarize, but they might not know what we mean by plagiarizing. Adele's adding something now in the doc.
And just to add a little more context to what Star's talking about, we also felt the need to kind of give students examples of some of the things that could constitute plagiarism. And what we ended up doing was taking language directly from the student handbook, as well as like looking at our library website to make sure like all of the language was consistent and then putting it into our policies. You know, sometimes you don't have to build these things from scratch. You can often go to other resources on your campus and then take from there and change it and make it fit your style without necessarily changing the content too much.
I want to ask the group, there was one comment that I replied to at the bottom, the attendance policy, the very first sentence, the seminar relies on the presence of its participants, so plan to attend every class. And the so plan to attend every class part is highlighted to come up with maybe a new way to phrase that or say it. And I think this group is gonna come up with some great ideas. But Magdalene, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
I'm still thinking through how to say it better. Yeah, but listening to other ideas has given me some stuff to think about. It was funny because it was easy for me to revise some of the areas, but this one is I don't know why this one is in particular hard for me. No, just that one phrase. I'm like, I can't figure out how I'm gonna say that.
If anyone has ideas for rewording, we can put them into the comments in the Part 4 doc, or we can just share them verbally or in the chat.
I feel like in our committee, we had that same phrase and we like sat with it for a while, but I can't remember the language that we ended up using. Because it's like, depending on how you read the sentence, it could seem harsh, but it also, it's like, not necessarily.
Plan to come to class, right?
So join the party, like.
And I think even the comment, it's not meant to sound as harsh as it does. That idea that we're writing these policies, but we recognize that they don't sound like us, right? As soon as we switch into this genre, it's like, who is that person? And I didn't mean for it to sound that way. And so that's a really interesting thing is when we're thinking about tone.
I think I like Juliet's revision. I think her suggestion kind of gets at that positive tone a little bit better.
I like that, yes. I'm gonna go to my action.
I like that too. And I think that mimics the language we would use in the classroom where we'd say, it's important, that you show up because we're all going to be working together and we need your voice and your perspective. But then when it comes to the syllabus, but again, sometimes we revert back to that. You need to be here, the really strict language. So I do like Juliet's suggestion as well.
Thank you.
I mean, there's a lot that everybody added, so I feel like there's a lot that we can talk about, or I don't know, is somebody really stuck on a phrase or like a certain aspect or something that y'all really want to work out today with this group before you get back? Or what are your plans for your policy revisions?
Well, and that leads us to the discussion question that's up. What challenges did you face in creating the policy? So did you come up across any challenges or difficulties in the rewriting? How did you address them? Or are there any that you haven't addressed, as Adele said, that we could help you out with?
I was wondering how we can tell the students that attendance will be taken in class, but impress it on them that by them not attending class in person, that they will be missing out on everything that is taught in class for that day. What do you all think? Well, let me put this in context, because for me, I know where my students are going. And even if they have taken, for you to know how we handle this, even if they've taken AP chemistry and made top score, we don't accept it. It is non-transferable. They have to take general chemistry the whole year. There should be no gaps. Otherwise, they will be struggling in the famous OChem. So, how do I help my students other than put it in the syllabus that there will be, and I will be taking attendance. That way they know it is important for them to come. Because if they're coming from high school, if you just leave it open that, well, you know, we encourage you to, or I encourage you to come to class. A student could say that I just didn't, they are very honest. I didn't feel like, I woke up a little late and I didn't feel like coming, you know, because I already knew the material. How do you handle that? This is, you know, for the, please, if you all can chime in.
Would there be space for that almost in sort of like the course description area where like this class with like not workshop style, but like our classroom conversations direct the content that we're covering based on your needs and your understanding of the like textbook or whatever we're covering? Just like a sentence or two that establishes that we have a classroom community and that they are a part of it, but they're an important part of it. And so if they miss that, then it's almost, they'll be missing out on that conversation and that learning, but it's an opportunity for, I don't want to say self-directed learning completely, but classroom directed learning for them. Maybe.
Yeah, so I, a long time ago, gave up on having an actual attendance policy. There's a vestige of one in the, like, if you have 6 unexcused absences, you fail the class, which I think I'm also going through. Even though that's most faculty at my school have that. But my reasoning is that it is up to them, they're adults, they can decide whether to come to class or not. I do want them to understand that not coming to class means they're gonna miss stuff, and that's a choice that they make, but I don't want to penalize them if they have chosen not to do it, right? They're gonna penalize themselves if they decide not to come, right? So I went to awarding class engagement points as a carrot instead of having the stick of attendance policy. So you come to class, you get points, right, toward your grade. And that has worked. I haven't had attendance policy or attendance problems in the same way that I used to since I made that shift. Right.
But points just for showing up?
You get some points just for showing up, but then you have to do some other things to get additional points. Yes.
And if the student doesn't show up, like how would that work with an actual grade book?
So it's my class is always out of 1,000 points, so there are a certain number of course engagement points of that 1,000, so they just don't get those points toward their 1,000. But if they have an excused reason for not coming, then we figure out an alternate thing for them to do. Like they complete whatever activity we did in class and submit it to me, or, you know, something like that.
I think one issue that comes up with, and it's all just terminology like engagement and things like that, that it makes students nervous, like, you know, introverted students. What does engagement mean? What does it look like? But taking on the same like style that you're talking about, what I've done in the past is like, and I listed in the course schedule, like in class submission, like signing up for the day you present, choosing the reading that you're presenting on, like all of that is done in class and they get points just for doing it. And they'd have to do it anyway. And so it's not points for showing up because they are contributing to the community of the class and participating in that way, but just scattering those throughout the semester as in-class activities as opposed to, you know, sign up through Canvas schedule thing or whatever. Because it also removes that scary element of what is engagement.
Yeah, so I actually have a rubric that says here are the behaviors that I'm looking for, and they're not and I was working on that policy too, but they're not like you need to speak X number of times. It's listen when others are talking, give others space to be heard, encourage others to, right? So it is trying to allow for engagement, but I think that there's more that I can do to allow for different types of engagement.
And honestly, if you reach out to your disability services office, they might be able to provide you with a list of things that would qualify if, you know, that's not our specializations, right? So they have lists on lists on lists of ways to help with that.
Yeah, in terms of my syllabus, the expectations for the course it's there. It is clearly stated, you know, that depending, if it is a lecture, I do specifically state the expectations, all that you all have said about making sure this is in your interest to attend class. You will be missing if you don't. But then I do also put out a note, and it's on them. They know from the very first day, they would just come in and then they sign in. Okay. The reason is also part of us, there is something we call grade appeal. I don't know whether you all know this, but you practice this. As is real. At the end of the semester, the student can appeal the grade you have given them. Now, we're talking out of 1,000 points. Mine is out of 1,000 points. And every day, if they actually will come and argue for half a point, and you ask, but you got 9.5 out of 10. They say, yeah, but it is not a 10 out of 10. And every little bit adds. So if I lose half a point here, half a point there, before they really argue their case, in a polite way, very professional. So in order to help so that they get the benefit, not only for the knowledge they are gaining or refreshing, depending on their background, how strong it is, they would also receive those points, even if it is 5 points. They argue about it's an A, not an A plus. So that the sort of clientele, they are highly, highly motivated students. So every half a point, quarter point, I had a student cry because he got 9.9 out of 10. Was in tears that it's not a 10 out of 10.
I agree. I think it's important for us to remember that it's not them being like nitpicky, it's that they are highly motivated. And so we can help with those conversations. Like, I see you, like you are so motivated about this. How can, like, what do you need from me? Or what are you doing where you're struggling, or where's the gap? And I mean, all of our universities have different resources that students can access, and us being one of them in our classroom. So I think that also brings it back to getting our students into the conversation at the beginning of building the classroom community, directing, like where meeting them where they are, or addressing the gaps, because they all have different backgrounds. So, you know, one person was taught this, the other person wasn't, but together we can learn and address this, because our students, if anything, they are motivated to earn high grades. That is a goal they can set and they can see it. And so we can ask them how we can help them reach their goals and what skills they can hone that they're learning in our classrooms. And so just remembering that they're not nitpicky, they're motivated, definitely more motivated than I was.
But I think they're also really entitled. We as a society, as academia, you know, have really put such emphasis on grading, and I think that's a big issue.
that there's a whole movement and people involved in looking at ungrading. So how do we help our students focus on learning? How do we help them come and get, and some of what you were just talking about, what do they want to do better and how can we help them do that better? You know, where are they now? Where do they want to be? Do we want them to be? It's the grading, and this is sort of broaching on a whole other area that the syllabus, this workshop is touching on so many things. There's a problem with grading and inflated grading and crying over a 0.1 of a grade just speaks to a wider issue. And I think the more we focus, and I worry about that with your attendance policy and all of the detail, you know, then again, we need 6 pages to say, this is what counts, this is what doesn't. Yes, you come in, if you sit in the chair and you're there for 15 minutes, then it's 0.1. 30 minutes is, I'm being facetious, of course, right? But then we start over explaining and over like quantifying what it means to be engaged. I don't know, we're treading, you know, difficult, complicated waters here. And I don't view that as motivation. I really view that as a problem.
And I think that one
like, what is that? What the 0.1, you know?
I think one perspective on that is remembering that students are not the only audience of this workshop, right? We have entire department policies that have to be met. And so thinking about who's doing the instructing, figuring out a policy that works for the person instructing the class has to be a priority sometimes, and that's okay. Like if we can construct a policy that is direct, simple, to the point, but also nice in its tone and accessible and inviting and encouraging, then that's the give and take, even though I don't feel like it's really even give and take. I feel like it does its job. And so as we go back to individual instructors in our own classrooms and how we are, like I could never do the not smile for 2 months thing. Like I could never not tell jokes. And so that's how I can talk to my students. Okay, this is the policy. This is what it looks like in my classroom. But when you go to the next step of this class, it might look differently. The main purpose is that you're here and actively learning, because you're paying for this opportunity to learn. And that's what I'm here to help you do.
And this is one of the challenges in creating policy, is that there's always a bigger issue. So we say, you know, grades are an issue, grade inflation, students are overly obsessed with grades, but then we say, okay, to get them to come to class, I'm going to take off a point or add a point, right? So we're playing into it because we know that that's what they value and prioritize. And so that's, I think, the difficulty with policy is how do we want to teach them how to behave in our class? How do we want to reinforce or work against some of those institutional kinds of constraints or some of the student beliefs that they come into the classroom with? So there are a lot of challenges. This is not, you know, one-time thing. We're revising policy constantly, and we're going to end today by talking about some ways that we can do that we can keep revision up and not have it end here today. But one question before we get to that I have for you is, what advice would you offer others based on the policy revision that you just did, or anything else we've talked about in the workshop today? So we're all going to go back to our institutions, I hope, and be inspired to revise policy. And we're going to be in department meetings or college-wide meetings or meeting with administrators. What are we going to tell them about what's important about the policies in our syllabi? Does anyone have any kinds of takeaways?
Or advice.
Yeah.
Speaking as the new faculty member.
Yeah, it's that second question on the slide. So what advice would you offer others? That can be peers, it can be new faculty, based on what we've been talking about today.
I think that sometimes we're handed material and we don't get a chance to look at it critically.
So I would say when they write their first syllabus, whether they had a model or not, have somebody else look at it. Have a friend look at it, not even a professor. Have a friend look at it and say, how does this sound to you? How does it feel to you? Does it sound like me? You know, is this me as a person being a teacher, you know, or an instructor? And I think the big piece about empathy and how would a student read that, so that's really hard. So that's why I'm saying ask a friend who can maybe say, wow, this sounds mean, or this sounds harsh, or what do you mean here? It's really confusing. So like a clean, fresh person who knows nothing about it, you know, how do they receive it?
Yeah, I really like the idea of having someone you know look at it and say, does this sound like me? Because I know that I have policies in my syllabi that, you know, I'm focusing on the major assignments or other parts, and the policies just kind of sit there, and then they sit there the next semester, and they sit there the next semester. That's not what I choose to prioritize usually in my syllabi when I'm updating them from semester to semester. So I need to be doing that more routinely, and having other people look at them. I don't think we necessarily kind of workshop or peer review syllabi the way we do with other documents. You know, if we're working on an article, I would feel perfectly comfortable walking across the hall and having a colleague look at it, but I just don't think to do that with policy. So I really appreciate that. That's a great point. Anyone else have ideas of advice that you might give colleagues about how they can have more inclusive policy? All right, so if you think of anything, feel free. Just someone about to say? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say one more thing before even nobody has something to add. Now, for me, what I'll be taking out of this workshop is more from, because our syllabus is a template where the college and the university policies are set. Then there are portions that where we take control, we, the instructors that are in charge of the courses, course description. So that's where the tone, we can soften those tone. In fact, that's what I will be looking at and immediately I leave here. Those portions that I have direct control over, that's what I'll be doing. And also ask my colleagues, you know, for their syllabus, just to look through and probably make suggestions to them, you know, about, oh, this great workshop that I attended, and share what I have learned from here, from this workshop, and see what they can do to be able to be more inclusive, especially in terms of the tone. And if I can get 2 or 3 people share the same thought process, it's a ripple effect. Then probably we can start touching the policies that are already written in the template. With many voices, we'll be able to make an impact and probably even bring it up. I'm the chair of the president of the faculty council. So I can talk, we might get some people and then we bring it up. Hey, look at our policy, because the syllabus, the templates, every faculty uses that template and then tailors it to his or her own course. So that's what I would do.
I love it. Like friends in high places, president of the faculty council, you have the access to the people in charge who can, you know, sign off on this. And
one of them is right here. My dean is here with me.
Oh, awesome. Even better. I hope.
Yeah. The next one that is attending the workshop on OSU and inclusiveness in research. So I told him, I said, okay, when you attend that, let me come and see what I can learn from syllabus. I was to be there with him So I said, so that we can maximize, again, collaboration, experiences from different workshops. So when we get back to the hotel, we have something from different workshops to talk about.
Yeah, and you already had, like, I love that there's already buy-in. Like, that is such a hard thing to get. And for people who are working on getting that buy-in too, I mean, alignment with strategic plans, university mission statements, like that's the kind of language that we pulled from at certain points when we were trying to revise our policies. And so if you don't already have the buy-in, but you have a friend who might, definitely good.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that you already have a plan for bringing this back to your institution. And I hope that we can all, you know, keep in touch and continue to kind of see how this is, how the policies are changing and what kind of change we're enacting at our own institutions when this is over. So just to wrap up, if we look at the Part 5 document, there's a question here about moving forward. So it's great if we revise our own classroom policies, but how do we get that to be aligned with student values, with institutional goals, with instructor values over time? So if you look at that document, Part 5, how do we consistently and continuously collect feedback about our policies? We've put a few categories here and a few example ideas in to get you started. For example, one way that we can ensure that our policies take into account our students' values is by asking them, right? So in the form of official student evaluations, by having conversations in class about what you value and what they value and how you can make those work together. So let's take our last few minutes today to add your own thoughts to these lists. Student values and knowledge, institutional goals and values, and instructor values. And if you have another category to add, please feel free. And please do contribute, where you're going to have access to this document after the workshop. So we're hoping that this will serve as a resource for you moving forward as you enact change at your own institutions. So we can just type in collaboratively into this doc, and then we'll have something to leave here with that has all of our contributions to it. So again, the question, how can we be consistently and continuously collecting feedback so that we can continue to revise policies and keep them in line with what we prioritize?
And no, Rosemary was just telling me, what she was just saying that the dean and Peter Dean are both here, but he was signed up for his workshop 5, so she doesn't have access to the Google Doc.
How can I sign so that I can receive these documents? Like I have just shared before now, I shared with you that the dean of our college and myself, both of us are here.
There's a bit.ly link in the slideshow at the bottom right. That short web address, bit.ly/IWAC policy. And it is case sensitive. So IWAC is all lowercase and then the capital P in policy. That'll get you to the Google Drive shared folder every time. Also, it was just added to the Whova chat as well. Sorry for cutting you off. I think that's what you were asking.
So nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Yes. I would be. Oh. Oh, yeah. Oh. I had to wear them, yeah. Yeah. I'm a man. They're out there. Take care. I noticed them because he was sitting next to me, and I was like, because I knew he was from Indiana. And then he was like, oh. Let's see it. Even more. Please, I would like to use this opportunity since I would have done it on virtually using chat or something, but anyway, I wanted to thank you all, the facilitators. We have the chair here, Adelaide. Thank you so much. Yeah,
I'd like the singer.
yes, exactly. And also I have Melissa, Juliet, Claire, and Star. Thank you so much for this wonderful workshop. I've learned a lot, and I'm going to take it back to my college and improve on what we already have to include that, make it very inclusive, friendly for our very special clientele. Thank you so much. Thanks, yeah. Rosemary.
Thank you too. Honestly, you've been so great this whole time, and I feel like everyone learned from you so much as well. And thank you. I'm so happy for you, and that your dean, I believe you said, is already supportive. So you're going to make awesome changes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna run too, but thank y'all.
Forgot to thank you too. Oh my goodness, you were wonderful. I think she has done a great job, and she has had an exercise for the day. Just helping facilitate, bringing the microphone and all the other behind the scene things that she's doing. Thank you so much.
You're sweet, Rosemary. Thank you.
Thank you all for
Fran,
thank you all for attending. Oh, I was just gonna say, thank you for attending, and remember that you'll have access to all of these documents after the workshop as well. And then I'll pass it to Adele for the Q&A.
Yeah, if we're open for questions. I can't really my screen is really small, so if there's people in the room still or not, I'm not sure.
And please, if you would tell, we here, we've already left. I wanted to invite you to our session tomorrow so you can see the collaboration, what we are talking about here, that is going on in our college, as is B7. So we are, yes, B7. It has to do with STEM and humanities relationship in our college. So we'll be presenting tomorrow, B7. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much. Okay. And Fran, if you're still in there, thank you so much for navigating and being a tech wizard for us.
It's been fun, and this is what I've worked through.
You were like sprinting.
I don't like making people wait on me, You saw me sprinting, huh?
I mean, you were definitely running back and forth to get everybody settled and set up. So thank you so much.
was fun. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'll be here 6.5 hours tomorrow.
I can't even count that high. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's everybody. I think David was in the room.
He
that
was.
just logged in. I'm sorry.
He was, but he's gone.
Okay, that's what we were thinking. Awesome. And is there anything we need to do as far as documents or anything like that?
I don't think so. Everything is recorded and we have everything in the Google Drive, so I think we're good.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fran.
Thank you. You're awesome.
Okay.
There was a lot that I would have contributed had I been a participant, because I teach freshman English too, and so I have also things I have to write. So I was thinking a lot of things.
I mean, we're here for it.
But that whole thing about attendance. These are 18-year-old kids, and they're used to having attendance kept, and I keep strict attendance, but they can always come to me. I always keep that personal part active, and they know if they communicate with me, I'll do anything for them. I'll bend over backwards, but I don't believe in taking the attendance part away. I think that's important.
Yeah, one thing I've done in the past is let them fill out an alternative assignment proposal. So if like they know they're going to be missing a chunk of something, they fill it out and make connections to the learning outcomes, to what we've been previously doing in the class, to what we're going to be doing next, if they can't fulfill an assignment for whatever reason. I mean, it does put the onus on them to come up with that kind of creative idea and learning, but it keeps them invested and involved without only penalizing them for having something come up.
That's good. Thank you.
But we're here to answer any questions if you have them, really. If you're stuck on something or a policy that you're trying to get changed at your place.
Well, I'm not sure anybody has like a ChatGPT policy already written, but I'm gonna have to do something about that. And I like what y'all said, that it's okay to use it, but you have to cite it. And that's not gonna show up in any MLA handbook. So is there, do y'all know of an actual accepted citation for ChatGPT or AI?
So, yeah.
MLA and APA. Oh, MLA and APA have them.
Do they?
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been able to come up with creative enough assignments to work it in just yet. Because I already have, my ideas for assignments and projects, and trying to work that in hasn't been easy for me yet, but we shall see.
Now, I'm teaching summer school starting 2 weeks from today. It might be a good time to start doing that, but I haven't decided how to do it yet.
They keep updating the versions so fast, so it's like learning so much faster than I'm able to keep up.
Making them cite it though, I think is better than not letting them do it, because they're gonna do it. So I like that.
Yeah, I've been able to spot it before, only once so far. And you could just tell because it was the only essay that didn't go on, and it was a reflection, y'all. And it was the only one that didn't like repeat things that didn't need to be repeated. Like I picked this topic and I blah, blah, and this assignment did that, because a lot of them take the space to reiterate what assignments they did. That was the only one that didn't. And it was so like vague and generic. It was not personal. And that was a dead giveaway.
And I hear ChatGPT has a serious deficiency when it comes to citations and resources, like they're fake. You can catch it like that.
For sure. Well, Fran, thank you so much.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, you too.
But my sweet is my heart.